all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day, and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry, with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to the No Fruit Podcast,
where we talk about our life experiences
with a spiritual twist.
Hosted by Maurice
and Kafa. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Hey everyone, how are you? This is Maurice, and we are glad that you are here with us today. One of the things that is on my mind right now is just looking at what's going on in the great state of Georgia and these laws that are talking about voting. And something that come to my mind, it just seems as though the African American church is just being a little passive, or they're not jumping up to the forefront in some of these social justice issues sometimes. Not in the manner, I guess, that I would expect. And I just want to talk about that a little bit today. You know, why does it appear that the African American church seems so passive right now? So just my opinion, when we take a look at the political arena right now, and they are trying their hardest not to mix politics and sports. Their their phrase of just shut up and dribble mindset. And unfortunately, sports has always played a major role for political situations. People have been able to use that major platform as a soapbox, if you will, to show what side of the fence that they're on, who they're supporting, standing for certain social issues and injustices, things like that. And I understand that at one time the church was the hub of the community, and they were some of the meeting places in the past for social issues, social injustices. Today, just for what we're going through in this world right now, I know a lot of them have become those hubs to feed people physically. And because they're not in the building, there's a lot of them that feel as though they're not feeding the people spiritually. But they're no longer putting themselves in a place to really, really fight these other social issues such as voting right now. Back in the day, they were hosting the meetings for a Dr. King or a Mary McLeod Bethune or things like that, as they were talking about these social issues that we're currently going through right now, especially for these voting rights situations. And listen to some pastors that I've spoken to, some of them like, hey, that's not my arena, which I totally understand. If that's not who you are, if that's not your your image and that's not what you're about, I understand you not wanting to talk about that or tackle that. But there are, right now we have, especially here in our greater Philadelphia region, there's like a church on every other corner. So you're not, it's like out of those 3 churches that's in this one block, you would think that at least one of them would be talking about social issues. So you don't, that's just one of the things that I don't see and hear about. So I'm just wondering, why does it seem like that why churches are not coming more to the forefront in these situations? And those that do come forward, why are we even thinking about them just being social media or media hogs right now because they are talking about it? So, I just want y'all to, let me know what y'all think out there, with these topics and these things, this time that we're going through right now. Why is the church appearing to be passive with these situations?
I mean, I don't think that the church is being passive. I think they are. It's just a different time frame. As you stated, hey, back in the day, meaning the 40s and the 50s, the 60s, and even into the 70s, I think that the Black leadership was a lot different than it is now. So you named a few individuals, being Dr. King, for example, a young man who was kind of thrusted into that position. I don't know that it necessarily was his own undertaking, if you will. I think there was a need, and he was kind of thrusted into that position and then pushed forward. So, who in our day is our person like that? Again, when you think about all those who are around during that time looking for change. And then why did they want that change? I think it's because not only did they want it for themselves, but it's that hope perhaps that their parents had spoke of and their grandparents had spoke of as they became more educated and more diverse across the United States. They began to see even more, it became more apparent, if you would, that there were injustices. So I think those are some of the differences, that now we don't have that leadership like we had, or that was at that particular time. I think, as you stated, that there are, back then folks went to church, and that's where information was shared about the neighborhood. That's when you found out if someone was getting married, if someone was having a child, if a new school was opening, if a scholarship was available. All of that information was shared at church. Now we can get that information in so many other ways, that we're not all running to the church for information. We're not all running to the church just because of that's just what we do. I think we've gotten away from that. And then again, understanding that we're in a pandemic. So we're not running to the church house in many ways. However, but even before that, I don't think that folks were leaning on the church as much. I think there are things that churches are doing, but it's not as big and it's not as prevalent, because whether it's this situation or whether it is a police officer killing someone, the noise that we're making just doesn't seem to be as profound as it once was, again, in those 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's just not, I don't know if it's because the news, we're so inundated with so much information, it's just not there. And the way the information is shared, it's not as exciting. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to be pressed down. I mean, I think they are talking about boycotts, economic boycotts. They're talking about other things, and those are things that were done at that particular time back in the day. But it just, when you hear that come up now, people are like, oh, that ain't gonna make no difference. You know, like they don't feel as though that's going to make a change, or we become so accustomed to things that we don't think that we can get along without those things. So again, if someone says, hey, boycott this or that, you know, reality, how many folks are really going to do it? And it really means something. I think those are some of the differences. I think it's just that we are not all coming together. So I think that's the big difference, that we have all separated. I think because not only we're separated from where we are geographically, but I think we're different when it comes to economics. And I think that has a big play on things, where we are in our status. And it's just, you know, phenomenal when it comes to, even when we looked at and listened to those who chose to vote in the last election, I was appalled by how many people said, oh, I've never voted before. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of people who were very, very well off that felt just hadn't voted, you know. So it's just like, well, you have all this wealth and you still don't, you know, partake in democracy. You know, it was just a little strange how many people, I guess they don't feel like they have anything to fight for or whatever.
So, so one of the things I would like to say real quick, I believe, first, when you talk about geographically, back in the day when the church was the hub of that community, I think with some churches that were I can't get it together. I'm sorry. Right. When they were planted in a certain place that was strategic. That was funny.
Ding, 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 ding.
But I think that in those communities, those individuals live there. But as things change, i.e. economic resources, whether somebody got a new job, so forth and so on, and other communities were becoming more integrated as we, and we're going to talk about the African American community, started to get better jobs and things like that. We wanted to, hey, you know what? We want to go to a bigger house, a house with a yard, you know, whatever we thought was the American dream. Those persons that were a part of that church ultimately moved away. And so, unfortunately, did they stay members or not? That's a whole nother debate. And what I mean by staying members, not saying they changed membership per se, but were they that faithful member going there every Sunday? So I think some of that has changed. And then not just them, but then their children. So, you know, just for us, you know, we're both from the city of Philadelphia, but we moved outside of the city of Philadelphia, right?
Right.
And then our kids, at one point in time, were, yes, we've been active in church on numerous occasions, but then there were other occasions where we were not active, such as when Kyle and I, we both, you know, we used to coach. You know, I was youth football and she was youth cheerleading. So there were some Sundays where we weren't at church because we were doing those type of things. So I think that's one thing that changed, you know, had changed us geographically. We moved on up. And then number two, you know, our kids in that geographical area, the kids' resources and situations changed because now there's more things available on Sunday. I mean, at one point in time, there was nothing open on Sunday at all.
Right.
You know, I remember that, like, there was nothing to do but to go to the church and to go to, you know, your your family's house for dinner.
Right.
Right. So I think those are some of those things that's changed. And I think something else that has changed within this process, as you have stated about leadership, I think when it comes to leadership, the respect for the pastor has changed over the years. And, you know, I don't know if it's any fault on their own per se, but sometimes some of the images that they portray are not very good qualities that you would expect from a pastor. And because, you know, people get tired of, hey, you know, those phrases of, hey, you need to tithe and things like that. Well, I know that listening to some individuals that are now sitting in the congregation who has just as much education as the pastor from a biblical sense, you know, when they say, well, tithing is not just money, it's my time too. You know, so you hear those type of debates. So now all of a sudden, you know, you don't get the same people investing within that community also. So I think that that church community. So I think those are some of the things that has changed that makes a difference as to why the church may seem as though it's passive at this time. And you know, when we take a look at some other individuals, like I for those of you who don't know, I've worked on many church teams, more especially during this pandemic, with their tech teams of broadcasting their services on social media, YouTube, Facebook, you know, whatever it might have been. Here's the thing. Some pastors have mentioned how they did not want to be televangelists, right? And they never saw themselves that way, and they took it as a very negative idea. Well, at some point in time, if you're trying to reach a certain group of people, you're going to have to get out there on social media anyway, because these young people are not coming to church. They're I guess the word is they are spiritual and no longer religious. I think I said it the right way. So they do not feel as though that the church is meeting them in a spiritual perspective anymore. So then they no longer are going to these churches anymore either. They feel as though that, hey, I can, put, where one or two are gathered in my name vibe versus, hey, that the body of Christ, don't forsake the body of Christ. So I think there's a whole lot of things that kind of goes on with that. And so in that, churches are trying to keep who they have and not rock the boat, but so much so they don't lose those last few individuals.
I mean, so with that, even if the church was trying to lead us in this issue that's going on in Georgia with voter suppression, who's going to hear that message?
Right.
So is it the folks that are already have been down this lane already because they were through it in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, so, or is it, again, as you're speaking, that next generation who perhaps are not coming to church as often, and especially as you're stating, if, during this pandemic, we hear it because, like you said, you're on the tech team, that people are not watching the entire service. They know, hey, if I clock in and tune in at a certain time, I'm going to hear this song. If I tune in at this time, then the pastor is preaching or the guest person is preaching. That they're not there for the full experience, so they may not hear the church announcements that say, hey, we're boycotting. Let's see, in Georgia, they're going to, one pastor or the church faith leaders are saying to boycott some of Georgia's largest corporations, including Coca-Cola, Aflac, Delta, UPS, and Home Depot. So there's one article that states that that's what some of the things are doing, that they're doing in Georgia. So there's another organization or a push called Souls for the Polls, and they're going around throughout the state, just sharing this message, organizing people, letting them know what's going on. Because again, that's the other part. A lot of news back in the day, everybody read the newspaper.
Right.
There was one or two news stations that you can get. But right now we have cable TV, so some people don't look at the news at all.
Right.
And those who don't have cable TV and they have their phone and they have internet, again, you can choose what type of information you're feeding yourself.
Right.
So you don't have to know anything about this at all.
Right.
And I think that's one of the tools, as the old folks would say, that's the tool of the enemy, this TV and this internet, because it distracts you in so many ways. Again, you can choose to what you want to feed it. If you want to look at cartoons all day, every time you turn on your TV or you look at your phone, you can find that. That's available to you.
Right.
Back in our day, cartoons only came on a certain time of the day. Outside of that, it wasn't nothing else you can look at. I remember, again, anytime between that 5 and 6, 7 o'clock hour, there was nothing on but the news.
Right.
There was nothing. I mean, maybe on channel 17 or 40, 29, you might find something else. But basically, and then again, you had one or two TVs in your house. Mm-hmm. So you were focused on, even if, whatever, the news was being played. Right. You could go outside and play, but hey, for my household, we came back in and we had dinner and we had to wash the dishes. So the news was on.
Right.
So I overheard it, and it was action news. That was the favorite, in our household. But, now you have news on so many stations. It comes on so many different times.
Right.
And the news, they may repeat, but if something is, breaking news, you may not hear it if you tuned in at the 4 p.m. news and not the 6 p.m. news. So that's that portion. And then again, the newspapers was another way of sharing information. And I think now a lot of that information is washed down and washed out.
Yeah.
It's not the same as it once was.
Right.
As well as back in the day, I remember my grandfather sitting outside talking to his neighbors. You don't see very many people talking to neighbors right now.
No, not really.
You or sitting outside because they're scared.
Yeah.
Every day in Philadelphia, there's 2, 3, 4 folks being shot.
Right.
So, sitting in your car, you're shot. Some folks sitting even in their own living room or bedroom.
Right.
The bullets go through the wall. So it's kind of a scary time. So folks are even scared, I guess, to get out and to congregate and to go to hear information. Again, if I know that someone's going to put their phone up and record whatever's going on, and I can check, as you said, Maurice, social media, and that's going to provide me that information, then I don't have to go out and protest. I don't have to go out and when someone's saying, hey, we're having a demonstration or a meeting, I may not have to get up and get dressed and go because somebody's going to put that up on Facebook. Somebody's going to put that up on social media and I'll be able to see it. That way, I don't have to worry about the news being there or I have to be there to hear it. Because if not, I won't get the information. No, I can get that information in so many other ways. And I think that is why the message is diluted. Mm-hmm. So I think the message is there. I think people are pushing, but it's just diluted.
Yeah.
Again, where did Black people live at that particular time? I think we were in a much smaller communities, but now we're all spread out.
Right.
We were just talking a few weeks ago on how integrated or mixed this neighborhood is versus what it was in the 50s.
Yeah.
Very, very different.
Right.
We were not allowed to be in this neighborhood in the 50s.
Right.
But we're here. And it's still mixed, you know, it's a mixed neighborhood. I can't say we have come in and it has totally changed. But again, think about where blacks were, where black churches were in that time that you're speaking about, when we were making social change, when we were more socially active, if you will, visibly active.
Right.
We were in a nucleus, like, you know, we were in a bubble. So the noise we made seemed so much louder because of that bubble. Right now, if you decided to organize a march, a boycott, if you decided to, you know, do a demonstration in front of Home Depot in our neighborhood, who's going to hear about it? Who's going to support that?
Right.
Because
Right.
we're so distant. You know, back then we had 1 or 2 markets we had to go to. So if that market, you know, you could go and stand in front of that market and people would hear about that message.
Right. Right.
If we go stand in front of our local market, who's going to hear about it? Who's going to support it? Who's going to be there? And it's just going to be very, very small versus back then. I think it was just different.
Yeah.
You know, just the demographic, the geographic makeup of us as people was different. The economical, social, you know, things that we had was just different. So, you know, and I think it's a good thing right now that all these things are going on, because it allows us to reflect on ourselves and see how far we've come, you know, and hopefully move forward. But I think the black churches are doing things. It's just not, it's not as prevalent because we're not all in that bubble.
Yeah.
We're not all supported by that 1 or 2 churches. You know what I mean? So, like you said, there's a church on every corner. Everybody has their own, you know, there's a church in every other house now because people are worshiping out of homes. So it's just so much different. You know, it's not like, hey, if you were Baptist, you went to this church. If you were Methodist, you went to that church. You know what I mean? Like, I just think there's just so many places that it's hard to kind of build a fire if there's so many little, you know, little fires going on. It doesn't seem as grand and doesn't seem as large because we're not all coming together. So I guess to all of our church leaders out there, how do we all come together?
Right.
And then what platform do we all come together on and agree upon that, so that the little fire that you're doing in your building in the suburb of Atlanta, or the little fire that you're building in the suburb of Philadelphia, like, how do those two come together?
So I really want y'all to, you know, digest what we've been talking about with this, and be sure to chime in, email us, you know, text us, whatever it might be. You know, just I want to hear what y'all have to say about this. I mean, we can go on and on and on about these situations, these opportunities, but we really want to hear from y'all. You know, because I could say 1,000 more things on top of what Kafa just mentioned, and maybe, you know what, I don't know, maybe we will have a part 2 to this someday. But I really want to hear what y'all have to say, because I think that this is a really interesting topic. And we can talk about this on not just from the voting perspective, but anything else. You know, sharing the information that Kafa says of, you know, food banks, sharing information about after school programs or whatever it might be. I think, you know, there's a lot of things where the church has you know, possibly lost its identity. So, you know, just let us know what y'all think. Hey, Kafa, what do we want them to do?
Maurice, we want everyone to stay fit with Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Follow, share, comment, and subscribe to the No Fruit Podcast.
continue to listen to us on your favorite podcast channels.
And look for new episodes every Thursday.
We thank y'all very much for listening to us.
May God bless you all.
Peace.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.